right. Hello and welcome back to the Trick Play Podcast on the Fresh Take Network. I'm Simon Chaskovsky here with Caleb Peterson, and shortly we will be breaking down all the sports-related news, rumors, and drama that you will want to hear about. This week we talked about our Super Bowl predictions, breaking the game down position by position by position to see which team is better, which team has the advantage, and who will come out of it with the win. Then we went into the Calgary Flames with friend of the show, Anand, as he came on and chatted with us a little bit about that Calgary Flames team that we've talked about so much on this podcast because, frankly, their season and their whole last little bit has been very interesting to watch unfold, bad and the good. Then we got into the NFL honors, plenty of NFL this week, but we got into the NFL honors and who we thought should have won, whoever won, oh my gosh, whoever should have won it, whoever did win it, all of that fun stuff. Ignore my stroke. Make sure to check us out on YouTube, Fresh Take Network, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, as we have new content coming out every single week on each and every one of those platforms. God, we really limped to the barn there. Caleb, are you ready to get going?
I'm so ready.
Yeah, get into it. There we go. I remembered to put the font up. There we go.
That's me. Let's go. So, obviously, the big event this weekend, Super Bowl 58. Mark it down, Sunday, 3:30 p.m. Pacific time, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. The matchup we've all been waiting for this whole year, Niners, Chiefs, the big one. Obviously, there's been a lot of conversation about this game for the last couple of weeks because it is the Super Bowl, but I'm I don't know what's happening with my camera over there, but
I was gonna say I'm just trying to get rid of 1,000 different things. Just keep going.
But yeah, we will get into it. We'll get into in terms of what we're thinking in terms of predictions before the game, and I think we're going to kind of go into position by position breakdown, which teams have the edge. But we'll get into that. Before we do, I'll just kind of throw it over to you, Simon. What are your kind of broad thoughts about the game, about the matchup, and about how you kind of think it'll go down?
Without giving too much away, because I think we want to wait till the later on to give our predictions. I think it's going to be a really good one. I think that we've got, obviously it's the Super Bowl, but I think we have two really, really good teams. I think they're very different teams, which I think adds to like the stylistic matchup we're going to get to see. So I'm excited for it. I know that I've had a lot of different conversations. Personally, I feel like this is a story already written. I think this is one in my head at the very least that I think is already made to go a certain way, but who knows? Who knows? It's definitely not one that couldn't go the other way. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah. And if you want, we can kind of get into we'll break down the game,
sure,
kind of piece by piece, and then we'll get into our predictions at the end. So if we want to start out with quarterback, I mean, this one's probably one of the more obvious ones, but how do you think this? Why is Mahomes your pick as to who has the better quarterback?
Golly gosh, I wonder. Well, Mahomes is going to Mahomes. I think the one difference, or the one real conversation, if we want to actually talk about this, is how much both quarterbacks actually needs to do for their team to win. And I think if you're Patrick Mahomes, you need to go out there and kick ass. That is the conversation I've had with most people when talking about this game. Is Brock Purdy can go out there, and I'm definitely not one to call him a field jet, like just a game manager.
A game manager.
So yeah, I'm definitely not one to do that. I think he is a good quarterback, but he can win this game by just being a game manager. In this case, he can potentially win it by going out there, maybe throwing 250 yards max and handing it off to Christian McCaffrey in the end zone. Like, that's all he's going to have to do to win it. If that becomes the case. Patrick Mahomes needs to go out there and have a career game. Maybe not a career game, but he needs to go out there and have the type of game that people will... He needs to be the MVP for this Chiefs team, I think, for them to win. At least in my opinion.
The one pushback I would have on that is not necessarily, because I do think Mahomes has a little bit more to work against in terms of who he has around him on offense. but I almost think that the Chiefs' defense can win the game for them, even if Mahomes has a bad game. Because if I'm looking at this, I'm looking at it from a couple different angles. I'm looking at it from I recently rewatched the highlights of the last Super Bowl these two teams played, and I think we forget how bad Mahomes played in that first Super Bowl that he played in against the Niners. And going into the fourth quarter, before he had those couple big drives to win the game, and that big play to Tyreek Hill, 3rd and 15. Before that, he had no touchdowns and 2 picks. And they still won the game because the Niners offense wasn't really able to keep up any momentum, and he turned it on in the fourth quarter for a couple drives. And I think that's almost kind of what we've been seeing all of this season from Kansas City. AFC Championship against the Ravens. He did what he needed to get the lead. And then what we've been seeing more from Mahomes is that he hasn't been making those mistakes. He hasn't been putting up as much, but he also hasn't been making those mistakes. So I think that's a big thing. I think that, like, in terms of, I do think he needs to do more considering that he has less around him, but I don't necessarily think he needs to have a career game for them to win. The other thing I would say about Purdy is the big thing I'm looking for from him in this game is, can he eliminate some of the boneheaded mistakes that he's made? Because I think it's a very underrated storyline how badly he's played in the playoffs. That Packers game was absolutely atrocious. He was terrible. He was god-awful. He missed so many throws. He threw what should have been a pick six. If the Packers could have caught it, they wouldn't even be here if that was the case. I think Brock Purdy is a good quarterback, as much as I hate to admit it, because my Brock Purdy hatred has just continued to grow as a Seahawks fan. But he has not been up to snuff in these playoffs. If a couple plays go a couple different ways where he made a mistake and he got bailed out, the Niners wouldn't even be here. That play I just talked about with the Packers, and then the play that got the Niners here against the Lions was the play where Kindle Vildor goes up, has a perfect play to make a pick. Purdy puts it right in his hands, and it goes right off his hands and into the hands of Brandon Ayuk. Those are bad throws from Brock Purdy, mistakes that are causing turnovers, and that's what he needs to eliminate if the Niners are able to win those games, to win this game.
Yeah. And I don't disagree. I think that even just looking at, like, I quickly pulled up a stat sheet just to kind of give myself an idea of what his performance has been like.
The stats don't tell the full story.
And they usually don't. But I still think it's important to take a peek at it. 2 touchdowns, 1 pick on the season, 260 yards per game, which is a lot higher than I thought it was, actually. But, I mean, it's not terrible, but again, I think you're totally right. I think he has a really good opportunity here to turn change what the conversation has been for the last little bit. He also has the opportunity to make it a lot more obvious. Because if he goes out there, plays a crap game, even if they win, people will be talking about that. Brock Purdy had a bad game. Is he really the quarterback of the future for this 49ers team? Which feels weird to say after the last 2 years. But it's certainly a conversation to have if he is really the weak link, right, on this team. Imagine how good you could be with a quarterback who isn't being carried. I'm saying what the conversation could turn to. I don't think it will, but
and I don't think it will either, because I think even looking at, I think that was more of a conversation last time we had this matchup with Jimmy G. Like, he was very clearly being carried by the rest of his roster, and I don't think Purdy is that, but I do think Purdy is a lot more prone to mistakes than people think, because when people say game manager, it's like, oh, he doesn't make mistakes. No, he runs the system well, and he's really good at that, but he makes a ton of mistakes in moments where it matters. And this Chiefs defense can make you pay for that, because that's how they've been winning all year. They just shut down who's probably going to be named MVP tonight in Lamar Jackson. The Chiefs defense did. Held him to 10 points. So if I'm the 49ers offense, I'd be a little bit scared of that. But I don't know if you want to move into the running back matchups, running back rooms. I don't know if there's quite as much to talk about here.
Probably not.
We've got this one's another. We got CMC on the one end, and we got Isaiah Pacheco on the other.
And I think this explains it pretty well. I had a conversation earlier today with one of my colleagues, and we were talking. He placed a bet that is not going to hit at all. He put $4 on it to win him $1,150 $4 or something, which should give you a pretty good idea. It was like an 11 legger. Like, it was the craziest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And I'm not a bettor by any means of the word. I do not do any sports betting, but he just read it out to me. And the one thing that he threw on there, that if you are betting on this Super Bowl and are not putting this on your parlay, or the Trick Play Sports Betting Podcast, if you do not have McCaffrey to score a touchdown, what are you doing?
Yeah,
and that is
yep.
And that is the one conversation. That is the one thing that I told him. He already knew it. He had it in there, but like I think that pretty much speaks to what this matchup is. I think he might have on a second one. I think he said he put in McCaffrey to score 3 touchdowns, which I had him going like, I don't know about that.
No, that's rough against that Chiefs defense. I wouldn't say so.
Yeah, that's a little high, but still, I think it really does show how good of a player McCaffrey has been and will continue to be, and I think will be in this Super Bowl. I think this offense is really going to get ran through him in this Super Bowl, and I don't think that's a controversial statement either. Well, you disappeared, but I think
my video's gone.
Oh, well, I'm talking to a black screen.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, there you go. You're good. But anyway, I think on the other side, that's not to discredit Isaiah Pacheco. I think he's a very good running back, but he's not McCaffrey. And the Chiefs don't need him to be McCaffrey. I think he is exactly what the Chiefs have grabbed every single season when they need a running back. They just bring in somebody who is good enough. It's this, and we've seen
he's like a great downhill runner. I heard this phrase that I love on one of the podcasts I listen to around the NFL. They say Isaiah Pacheco runs like he's gonna bite people. He runs like he bites people, and that's kind of what it is. Like he's coming at you with some force, and it almost reminds me, maybe not exactly the same, but in style at least, like Chris Carson on the Seahawks. What he used to be like, and that kind of I think
that kind of like physical power back type style.
And I think that aspect of the game is a little bit under talked about.
Yep.
Because how did the Lions almost beat the Niners, and why did they fail in the second half? Because they hit on them with the run game in the first half. Some huge runs, especially there was like the 3rd and 18 where they ran for it and got it. The Niners run defense was looking terrible. And if I'm the Chiefs, I think that's something you try to take advantage of, especially early on. If you can grind down that San Francisco defensive front, then I think you have a decent chance to win the game. Because Mahomes and his receivers, for as good as Mahomes is, his receivers have not been. So if you can rely on the run game, I think that'll be huge. As for San Francisco, I think you pretty much said it all with CMC. There's that. The one thing I would add would be watch out for people like Debo and people like Ayuk getting in the run game as well. Not to use that as too much of a transition point to talking about the receivers, but I do think that's a huge part of the Niners game. I think they used it a lot against Seattle, where it's like, we're going to use CMC until you stop him, and then once you stop CMC, we're going to start running Debo and Ayuk. And then we'll keep doing that until you can stop both of them. And then once you can stop both of them, you're already so far up in the box that we can just throw it up over your heads. That's kind of their game plan, along with the short little West Coast offense they run in the middle. But it is kind of like with the Niners, it's like you have to stop something, and you're going to have to leave something open with how many weapons they have and how many options they have. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Chiefs choose. But with that, we can move into talking about the receivers. Obviously, there's another one where I feel like I think if we go quarterback advantage Chiefs, running back advantage Niners, I think there's another big gap between the receiver groups.
And I mean, this has been. I mean, we pointed it out right off the jump as well. I don't know if we're gonna have time to go through every single group. We're gonna have to be a little bit picky.
You want to? Yeah, we can skip the trenches if we need be.
I think that will be the case. I think we will be skipping the trenches. But I think we can group, I mean, obviously group tight end, wide receiver, just for sake of time.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I quickly pulled it up. I kind of wanted to start off with the Chiefs, because I think a big thing that I've heard a lot of people talk about is how good Rice has been so far for the Chiefs. He's almost kind of had a comeback. I don't know how good of a regular season he was having, but I know I wasn't hearing about him very much. But in the postseason, it's almost been the opposite. I think he's really, really just almost come out of nowhere and turned into a very, very reliable receiver for this Chiefs team. I mean, you even look at it on the stat sheet. His yards is comparable to Travis Kelce. And I mean that has to say a lot, I think, about how good he's been for this team and how important that I think that is going to be for them. Do you disagree?
Yeah. I think that he is someone who is fine, and in this Chiefs receiving core, someone who is fine is a godsend.
Yeah.
I think they've stepped it up, and I think Rice has played better than a lot. I mean, he's been the best receiver on this team. Aside from, like, I guess Kelce, who has also had his moments where he has not looked very good.
Yeah.
But I think this if the Chiefs are going to lose, it's going to be because of this, because this is how they've been losing all season, is because of their receivers either just not being there for Mahomes and not being open, or they're going to make some boneheaded play at the worst possible time where they have a drop and goes through their hands, gets intercepted, fourth down, they drop it, whatever it may be. That's how they've been losing all season, and it hasn't happened in the playoffs. Props to them. They've been doing much better in the playoffs, and I think Rice playing a lot better than he kind of standing out in the postseason has been a thing to watch. But I also think it's important to shout out guys like MVS, who was a big part of that losing effort in a lot of these games, where he dropped a big pass against the Eagles and had some mishaps. And I think I brought this up in the conference championships episode, where he has played, like, he had that catch against the Ravens to convert that last first down and win the game on a very similar play. And it's just that they've been stepping up in the playoffs when they haven't otherwise been in the regular season. I think that'll be a big difference in the game. I don't think it's necessarily just about Rashee Rice, because I do think, like, you put him on any other team and he's wide receiver 3 or 4. I don't think he's, like, anything special. He's just the best receiver on that team other than Kelce. And he does his job and doesn't fuck up that much, which is more than the Chiefs can be saying for a lot of the other players on their team. So I think
it's almost like you just want to, like you said, you just want a guy who's accountable. Like, you can, when you need it, when you, on third down, 3rd and 8, who are you going to throw to who isn't named Kelce? That's what it's come down to for this Chiefs team. If Kelce's covered by a good linebacker, which this 49ers team has plenty of, what are you going to do? And I think in this game, no matter what you think of Rashee Rice, he's probably going to be that guy, and it's going to be whether he steps up.
Yeah, pretty much.
But, I mean, on the other side of the thing, 49ers receiving core is really good.
Oh, yeah, I guess we haven't even talked about them. But it's what can you say?
What can you say? Like, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Ayuk. Let's move on.
I hope Kittle has a terrible game. I just hate him as a player. Absolutely terrible dog shit.
He's such
player. I don't like him.
He seems like such a nice dude.
He does not. I don't know. He is not a nice dude. We do not stand George Kittle. Absolutely terrible dog shit hair, dog shit everything. Little braggy bitch. I don't like him. I'm a Seahawks fan, if you couldn't tell.
No, you're just a very big hater, apparently, of all things George Kittle, just for fun.
I mean, I am too.
Okay, well, why don't we move to defense if we just want to group defense together?
You want to? We could do. Do you want to just group defense as a whole? We could also do, like, if we want to. Okay, yeah.
I think we group defense together. We are running out of time, I think, for this segment, as we do have a segment sort of set up. But which side do you want to start with? 49ers or Chiefs?
I think the Chiefs is the better defense. I'll start there.
Okay.
This is I think it's underrated how good this defense has been, because they've, like I said before, they've been what's winning the Chiefs games. And we saw it big time against the Ravens in the AFC Championship. I think the Bills were the team who had the most success against the Chiefs defense, but they were there when the Chiefs defense was there when it matters. They've just been consistently able to slow down some of the best offenses in the league. And I'm looking at a guy like Steve Spagnuolo, their defensive coordinator, and this is a guy who has so much Super Bowl experience as a defensive coordinator, not just on the Chiefs, but on those Giants teams who doubled up and beat the Patriots twice. So I know, I'm not to tip your hand too much, Simon, but I know you think this is a pretty difficult matchup for the Chiefs. Spagnuolo knows a lot about facing difficult matchups against offenses that seem kind of unstoppable, and he was able to scheme up something for them both times. Again, we saw it most recently with the Ravens on a couple weeks ago, and I think that's the key to this game. It is how it's the Shanahan versus Spagnuolo. I think that is a fantastic play calling matchup, because Kyle Shanahan, as much as I hate to admit it, he is a genius in terms of this kind of stuff. And
no,
I think Spagnuolo
is one of the best coaches I think we've seen in the last 5 years, and I don't think that's controversial at all. He has been very, very impressive. What he's been able to do with this 49ers team, with all the talent he might have, is very impressive. He coaches a very, very good team. And I think this will be interesting. I think this will be a really, really fun matchup. I don't know if you want to... I mean, I agree with you. Chiefs defense is probably better. And, no. I don't know if I have much more to add to that. I don't know if you want to jump right into Super Bowl predictions, but...
Do we want to talk about the Niners defense just for a minute?
Sure.
Before we
yeah, sure. Actually, yeah.
What do you think about the Niners defense?
I mean, it's got the big stars, right? It's got all the big names you could really ask for. Like, you got Warner, you got Bosa, you've got all those guys. Like, their cornerback group has not been bad. It's been good enough. And I think that pretty much describes this group. They've got a lot of stars. They've got a lot of guys who can play when they're needed. It's just going to be whether they show up in the Super Bowl. That's all it's going to come down to. I know I don't know how much how good I feel about the Chiefs' O-line going into this one, more just around the fact that they've got a lot of very, very good pass rushers coming downhill at Mahomes for as shifty as he is. I wonder if that's going to cause any issues for him. I think it'll be interesting. I think it's a pretty good matchup that we've got going here. I mean, like you said, Chiefs still have them outclassed, but that's not to say that the defense on the other side isn't almost just as skilled.
Yeah, I would say so too. I would say there's a little bit more of an issue in terms of teams do have a blueprint on how to beat them. I think more than the Chiefs do, because if you can run the ball on this team, then you're probably going to win. And the Lions did that, and they went away from it in the second half. I think because they got scared and the Niners started getting momentum. They weren't able to keep up that lead as much, just because of how quickly that all turned out. But yeah, if you can run on this team, it's a huge advantage to you. I think other than Warner, I think their linebackers are a little bit shaky. I think their secondary is actually a little bit underrated in terms of the players I have out there. Charvarius Ward has been great. Not to say that, that I don't think you need that good of a secondary to beat the Chiefs receivers at this point. So I think the big matchup is like I said when we were talking about running backs, just on the ground. Can the Niners defense hold up against them? And if the Niners defense is able to stop Pacheco and the offense can get going a little bit to where the Chiefs are having to play catch up, that's the big thing where I'm like, then the Chiefs are screwed. The Chiefs, I don't think, will be able to do like a come from behind win. I don't think they have that in them.
And that's what they had to do in the last time when they played the 49ers.
Yes. Yep. I don't think they have that in them this time. I just don't think they're built for that anymore. You don't have Tyreek Hill running downhill on a 3rd and 15 anymore. You just don't. You still got Mahomes, so I guess anything's possible, but I just don't think they're quite built for that.
No, I don't disagree. I think when it comes down to it, like I said, when you're looking at it on 3rd down, or even 3rd and 15, like you said, who are you going to give it to if you're Mahomes? You can run around in the pocket and avoid sacks all you want. You can make the stupidest dimes, but if that ball is getting dropped, nobody cares. I think, like you said, I think that's what it'll come down to. Because when the first Super Bowl was played between these two teams, Tyreek Hill was that guy on 3rd and 15. Sure, Travis Kelce can get that for you sometimes, but I think when Tyreek Hill was on this team, that was assured. He was exactly the guy that you want to put the ball in his hand in that spot. And you don't have that anymore. And we're just going to have to see what they do with it. We're going to have to see what they decide to do in that situation. Because I don't know. It'll be interesting.
Yeah. All right. Do you want to give your prediction for the Super Bowl as we kind of wrap things up?
Are we doing score as well?
Yep. Got to hit the score.
So I've kind of thought. I think I'm still gonna stand with what I went into this segment thinking and what I've told most people. Trying to come up with a score is tough for me. I think it's gonna be close. I think it's gonna be very, very close. I don't think either team is really gonna run away with it. I think it'll just come down to the last minute. I have a funny feeling it's gonna end up in one person's hand, and when you put the ball in that guy's hand with 2 minutes on the clock, shit happens. I've got the Chiefs to win it. And
really?
I
thought you had the Niners to win.
No, I don't have Niners.
Wow.
I have the Chiefs. Maybe it's out of optimism that I don't want the Niners to win it, but I do have the Chiefs. I will say 31-24. We'll go with that.
Okay. I'm going to, so what I've been telling people, because a bunch of people have asked me for my opinion on the Super Bowl, and normally I'll have a pretty clear answer for them. And this year I haven't. I think it's just because I'm looking around and I'm thinking a Niners Super Bowl win would make me go insane and make me lose it a little bit. And it would just be like the straw on the camel's back for breaking my overall positive well-being. It would crumble to the ground. So I don't want to speak it into existence. And I think there's a very real possibility that the Chiefs win. I think if their defense shows up to play, and if I think they can avoid falling behind early, I think the Chiefs absolutely have a chance to win. Taking advantage of Brock Purdy's mistakes, absolutely. But I think the big thing that I'm worried about is if this Niners team, which I think they're fantastic on opening drives, I think if they get the ball to start the game, they march down there, score a touchdown, then the Chiefs aren't able to immediately answer. Like if this game turns into a shootout, the Chiefs aren't winning. And I'm a little bit scared of that.
That's interesting.
So in my head, I've been telling people all week that I think the Chiefs will win. But as I've gone through a period of self-reflection, I think that is more of what I want to happen.
Yeah.
And it's not that I think it can't, but I think if I was really to be honest with myself and say, like, what do I actually think is going to happen here, I don't think they can beat the Niners at this point.
Wow.
I think the Niners will start hot, and I think Brock Purdy will make some mistakes. He'll keep them in the game, but I'm thinking 27-20 for the Niners. I just don't think if the Niners get ahead that the Chiefs have the kind of team to catch up.
For Patrick Mahomes in a Super Bowl.
Yeah, and the other thing is that this prediction does for me is that all year people have been betting against the Chiefs, and then the Chiefs have proved them wrong.
Yeah.
Prove me wrong. I'm a hater. Prove me wrong.
Yeah. I don't know. This is one of those years where it feels like when you think back on a player's legacy, right? Like when you, for example, you think of Tom Brady, you can go through all the stuff, like the coming back from the Atlanta Falcons, like giant lead and like all of that stuff. This is the year where Patrick Mahomes is going into it. The last time he went into it with very obviously the worst team, he got his ass kicked by Tom Brady. This year he's going into it with very obviously the worst team, and I think this is a legacy game for Patrick Mahomes. And I think this is the type of game where he has the opportunity here to go out there and have the type of game that people will talk about for the next 100 years. And I have a feeling like it'll happen. I just think this is the type of thing where the only thing standing between Patrick Mahomes and a legacy-defining game is Brock Purdy and the best football team. Like, just, I don't know. It feels like one of those things where I think Patrick Mahomes might have the chance to go out there and throw like 4 touchdowns and have like the stupidest game ever. It feels like one of those kind of Super Bowls.
Yeah, I hope you're right.
Yeah.
I just don't see it
that could be optimism. That could be optimism. Who knows? But
as much as I am going to be disgusted by seeing George fucking Kittle with a Super Bowl ring, I think it's probably what's going to happen, and that makes me more depressed than anything. If I'm not back at the podcast next week, it's because I'm in a catatonic state of depression and haven't left my couch since Super Bowl Sunday.
Well, that makes it interesting for sure. We're both on either side. I mean, it's not. I don't know. I don't want to say you're cheering for the 49ers because I know that isn't true. But
I'm almost
who do
making
you think's
this
gonna
prediction.
win?
Yeah, I'm almost.
You're making the prediction, hoping you're wrong, basically.
Yeah, I'm covering both my bases. If the Niners win, I can at least say that I was right. And if the Chiefs win, I can be happy and like have joy in my life.
Yeah.
So, there's that.
There you go. At least you can come back on the podcast sobbing, just like I knew it.
Yeah, pretty much.
There you go. All right. Well, next segment. So, for this next segment, we're going to be talking about the Calgary Flames, who, since we last brought on our guest here, Anand Unatan, have made a lot of changes that we talked about them potentially making. So now we're kind of on the back half of all that. We'll be talking about pretty much everything that has gone down in the last couple of weeks, as well as what the team's currently looking like, and maybe looking ahead to what potential moves could be ahead of us. But I think we got to start with the big story that happened. I think it was last week with Elias Lindholm being traded to the Vancouver Canucks for, I'm setting myself up for failure here, but Andrei Kuzmenko and defenseman Hunter Brzestowicz, I think, right?
Oh yeah. Something like that.
Something like that. That's a tough one. Yoni Yurmo, a first-round pick and a conditional fourth-round pick that could become a third if the Canucks win the Cup, I believe. Win the Cup, go to the conference. It's one of the two. But
if you go to Western Conference Final.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes more sense. But it was a really interesting trade to watch unfold because it was one that has been rumored for a while. It's kind of strange to look back on, but I know we were just talking about the Flames game that just happened tonight. We are recording this on Thursday, February 8th, where Kuzmenko scored his second goal as a Flame, as he continues to have just an excellent start with his new squad. I'm really curious what both of you guys think about this trade, because I think I already have a very positive opinion.
Yes, I mean, definitely a great and positive opinion coming into now the second game that we have seen Kuzmenko. The first one was a power play goal in his first game against Boston Bruins. That one we won 4-1. And then today he rebounded again to score the second goal of his Calgary Flames season. So really fantastic trade by Craig Conroy. I remember sitting at a Toastmasters meeting and remember seeing the trade go down. So I clearly remember it was on Wednesday last week. So getting a second goal 1 week after, fantastic win. Lindholm, on the other hand, with the Canucks is having a bit of tough time. I mean, he scored 2 goals in his first game after the trade, but today they got shut out by Boston Bruins 4-0. So nothing to show there, but definitely a good trade pick. And then Hunter Brzestowicz, I've heard he's a great defenseman. He's still developing and playing in the OHL. Yoni Yurmo is also having a great season as a down in league, I believe, in Sweden. If correct me if I'm wrong. But
I don't actually know, but that sounds right.
Yes, somewhere in the junior league, so he's playing that. So he continues to be fantastic. And then, like you said, Simon, once Vancouver Canucks advance down the conference final, we'll be able to see which pick we get. So great return for the Calgary Flames and good package. I am proud of what Craig Conroy did. He did amazing with the trade.
Yeah, and I'd have to agree with that too, because I'm looking at this, and this is kind of like a proof of concept almost in terms of like sell your pieces, Craig. Like do what Brad could not, and take your aging veterans who probably want to win a little bit more, and ditch them off this little bit of a sinking ship and try to rebuild and actually build something special. And I think he did exactly that. And I think he got a lot for Lindholm. Like I'm genuinely pretty surprised with the return because, like you were saying, Anand, like there's some like fantastic pieces here.
Yeah.
Kuzmenko is the one that's going to be highlighted right now because he's here, he's producing. It's fantastic. I am especially excited about the meme potential.
Yes. I agree with that.
Kuzmeister. I don't know if you guys follow Nux memes on Instagram, and he'd always post whenever Kuzmenko scored with the Canucks. The Kuzmeister just dicked you. I'm so ready. I'm so ready for that to be a part of Flames culture for the next couple of years. And he just seems like a cool guy too, and he's been playing really well. And I know he's had a bit of a down season so far with when he was with the Canucks. But he was producing at an insane rate last year and has gotten up to a great start with the Flames. And I know the big thing with him was like him and Rick Tocchet did not get along. So new environment, and he's already starting to pick up the pace again. Fantastic get for Craig Conroy, I think. And the other thing, the first round pick, obviously also fantastic. It's probably not going to be very high considering it's Vancouver and they're probably going to do pretty good. But the first round pick is a first round pick. The one thing I would say is I honestly think the best piece in this deal is Brewsterwitz. He is. I was pulling up when I was pulling up some my elite prospects over here to check out his OHL stats, and he is absolutely insane. So his first season in the OHL was last year, and in that first season with the Kitchener Rangers, as a defenseman, let me remind you, 57 points in 68 games. That on its own is kind of insane. But he has taken an even bigger step up this year to where he has already eclipsed his point total from last year. He's at 69 points in 49 games, which projected over a whole season would be 94 points in 67 games. Absolutely insane. Like that's insane offensive production from a defenseman. Like I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, if he is able to turn into something at the next level, like that could be a special piece. Like he has a lot of potential when I'm looking at him. I'm thinking like, dude, Craig's pulling some strings, and I think this might be the main part of the deal in his head, where he's like, yeah, that Kuzmenko is great, first round pick is great. This kid is what I'm like, looking to build this team out for the next like 3-4 years is when we're going to be really good. He's going to be coming into the league at around that time, and he's going to be something special, I think, if this keeps up.
Yeah, and I agree with that too. I was super excited when I saw him. I've seen a lot of the one comparison I've seen made, ironically, I might add, is to Adam Fox, at least in what his growth kind of looked like as moving up through the. I don't have the advanced stats right in front of me. I wish I did, but I remember just the sort of I'll call it a ladder, or kind of like the growth that we saw from Adam Fox during his time in the CHL, or I think it was the CHL for him. He could have been college. He seems like a college guy, but I think it was CHL. As he made his way up, it's very similar to what Brewsterwitz. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. I'd feel really bad if I wasn't. But what we're seeing from him, it's been very, very similar. I'm very excited for him. I think based on the style we've seen from him, I think that his ceiling could be as high as an Adam Fox type player, which, like you said, that is exactly what you want from a player like this. But even his floor, there's been some, with how good he's been doing in the CHL, he could probably be up in the NHL at this point with the amount of points he's putting up. Whether he'd be higher than a third pairing defenseman, probably not, but he could easily be up here. Who knows what he could be even next year or in the next 3 years. So I agree with you, Caleb. I think it's a really good pickup. He definitely has the potential to be the best piece we get out of this. I'm very excited for Kuzmenko as well, though. I think he's so far, obviously, a little bit too early to know. 2 goals in his first 2 games is pretty awesome, though. You can't really complain too much about that. He's been pretty terrific. And you mentioned a down year, Caleb, but even, I mean, if you want to look at a comparison, he's had. Okay, never mind. It's a pretty big down year, but still, 21 points on the season is something that we shouldn't be complaining about with this Flames team. With the amount of point getters that we have below 20, bringing in a guy like Kuzmenko, I'm not complaining.
I also think that was very situational based in terms of like where Kuzmenko was. He and Tocchet were not cool with each other. He was like healthy scratched a whole bunch of times. There's a lot of other stuff going on. So I think that down year you can't solely put on him.
Yeah, I don't disagree. But if we want to move on to a different sort of topic with this Flames team, I think another really interesting thing is just the trade rumors we've seen kind of going around. There's a lot of big names the Flames have on the market. Craig Conroy went on, it might have been 960, it could have been a podcast. Now that I'm thinking about it, I do not quite remember. But he went on somewhere and mentioned the fact that he does not see a single person on this Flames roster that he would not be willing to trade to try and improve the team. And while I think that is a bit of a stretch, because I think we have a lot of young guys that I would see as untouchable, I still think it shows the mentality that Craig Conroy has. And I think it really does show that even while looking at it, like with what we're used to with the type of aggressiveness we normally have from the person in the general manager seat with this Calgary Flames team, I think we are seeing that Craig Conroy is willing to pull the trigger on a lot of these moves. And I think there's really 3 big names. Now that Lindholm's now gone, there's 3 big names that people are talking about. It's almost like Markstrom slid into Lindholm's spot, but it's Hanifin, Tanev, Markstrom. And I think the first question I'd open to whichever one of you wants to take this first. Who do you think is the most likely to be moved, and who do you want moved?
Alright, maybe I'll start with first. So the talks right now, if we are talking about non-goal tenders, we'll start with that. Who is likely to get moved? Possibly Tanev. That's what we are talking about. That's the most talked player right now on the Flames roster that can be moved. Obviously, today there were 2 scary parts for Tanev. He went to the dressing room twice during the game. So that was a little sticker shocker for everybody to see if that injury will prevent him to get traded. But looks like he was all right and he returned back. So Tanev could be a person that's going to be traded. Obviously, he likes blocking shots. He has been a great defenseman. He has elite sticks and elite hands. So we might get a huge package out of him. Hanifin, I'm okay whatever with he decides. I think the general manager, Craig Conroy, has given him the leisure to decide what he wants to do. Basically, he can decide to resign or stay. I would honestly keep Hanifin so that he can build a skeleton for new guys coming in, especially like Hunter Brustovich, or if we get another defenseman out of the conditional picks. So to keep that, I would suggest we keep Hanifin, trade Tanev, and that's what we likely are seeing. But again, today I heard differently. Hanifin could be also traded because of how long it's been taking him for them to make a decision. They could be speculating a trade move because of how long the time frame is. So at the moment, as it stands, I would see both of them going. But honestly, if I were me, I would keep Hanifin and trade Tanev. Over to you, Caleb.
Yeah, if we want to talk about Hanifin and Tanev, and then we'll kind of loop back on Markstrom, because it is something that's been brought up recently. I think I'm honestly of the opinion of Conroy, get out there, wheel him and deal him, buddy. Like I'm really excited if he can get that kind of return that he got from Lindholm. Why not keep the good times flowing? Because I'm looking at this team, and I know that we've been doing a lot better recently. Game against the Bruins. Hey, look at that. We beat one of the best teams in the league. You can't let that define anything, though. And it sounds pessimistic and it sounds terrible, but it's like we're not good enough to do anything in the playoffs or even to make the playoffs. And we want to rebuild around younger pieces. we've seen one of the most positive developments of the season has been the development of guys like Connor Zary, guys like the recently extended Martin Pospisil. They've really shown up on this team, and it's been the kind of thing where it's like the youth movement is what we want. And as much as I love guys like Tanev, especially, I think you can get a lot of value for him from teams like the Toronto Maple Leafs, who are looking for that defenseman to kind of put them over the top. And I think they'd pay a little bit extra, because I don't even know if you could fiddle around with some like salary retention for the Flames, where they can like retain some salary and potentially get some extra pieces just for doing that, with how screwed up the Leafs are in cap world. But I think, again, like, I think you just got to wheel and deal him. I think you're right on. Like, I think Tanev is probably like most certainly gone. I think that's the big one where it's like, yeah, he's not coming back, and I'm okay with that. Not to say that he's not a great player, because he's a fantastic player, but I think it's time to move on from guys who are a little bit older like that. And Hanifin, I said on the last pod that we did kind of like a similar roundtable discussion on this, that I said Hanifin would be the one that I'd be most willing to keep, and I still think that's true. I'm still of the opinion that you should try to get as much value for your pieces as you can, and I think if we're really committed to rebuilding, like, that's what you have to do. But if they keep Hanifin, I'm not like, oh boy, they should have gotten more value from him. I do think it's the big thing. It's like, if you can get him re-signed, I guess is the most important thing, which we were talking about in terms of Buddy needs to make a decision. If you can get him re-signed, I'm okay with that, in terms of like, I don't feel like we're keeping dead weight. I don't feel like we're keeping some older talent that we should have shipped off. Like, I'm okay with that. But I think especially if you're uncertain, or if you know he's not going to be here, then he needs to be shipped off, because there's no point in keeping him around and then not getting anything for him and having him leave in free agency. Doesn't make any sense. So to sum up everything I said, wheel him, deal him, Connie.
Yeah, and I think even just to kind of add on to, because I agree with a lot of what you said, Caleb, to add on to that. I wish I had the stats that were more recent up to what we would potentially need point-wise, win-wise, for all of the rest of the season to make the playoffs. But I know back towards the end of January, the Flames would need roughly 94 points to get the final wildcard spot, which would mean they would need 47 points in the 35 games that hadn't been played at that point, which is a win rate of .671, which is pretty much impossible, is what the conversation was being pointed out. Is the only teams able to achieve that were Boston, Vancouver, and Winnipeg during this season. And
So
the Flames,
Simon, sorry,
Yeah, go ahead.
but right now, after the win today, we are sitting 1 point out of the wildcard spot, the second spot for wildcard spot. We are right now, if you're talking 1 point, so 54 points we have right now, I believe, and so right now we have 53 points. We are one spot out. Nashville and St. Louis Blues is ahead of us. So if one of them loses, we could possibly go into the second wildcard spot. And then we have Los Angeles ahead of us with 56. So possible to enter that wildcard spot again, but it's going to be challenging and difficult.
Yeah, it's definitely, well, that's for sure. I think the main reason I wanted to bring up that stat was, though, just to show how difficult it would be. I think, which is why I kind of land more on the pessimistic side, and why I was a very big fan of the Elias Lindholm trade. And I think I kind of agree with you, Caleb. I think you clean house. I think if you're Craig Conroy, with the trade that you were able to get for Elias Lindholm, you're showing what the market looks like for these players who are on expiring deals. I think you get rid of anybody, because it really makes me wonder what the market for a player like Hanifin would be, especially if,
Yeah.
I mean, just think about the amount of money you'd have to give him. It wouldn't be as much as you would probably think. I think Hanifin could potentially be signed for around like $6 million, which is not that much for a defenseman like him. And I think I don't know. I think he's the type of player who you can get fairly cheap for his skill level. I think the Flames would get a lot, is what I mean. Tanev is a little bit more interesting to me. I know I've heard rumors about the Flames potentially getting a first round pick for him. I'm not as optimistic.
Ooh, no.
Yeah, I feel like There's a chance we get a prospect, maybe a second if we're lucky. I feel like that's more what a trade package for him looks like. But the thing is, I'm still very open for that. I think we'd still be winning the trade if we got another very, very good prospect, very realistic NHL guy in the next 2 years, and a second round pick. I think that's a win for Craig Conroy, and that just continues to add to how great he's been as a general manager so far in his time. He's made a few mistakes that you can nitpick, but I think he's done an excellent job. As for Hanifin, I agree with both of you. I think if you can keep anybody, you keep Hanifin, obviously. I think he's the youngest of the group. He is probably has the most potential to continue growing and to potentially add to a Flames team that could be contending in 3-4 years, depending on how things go. But I also think that if you can trade him for a prospect, a first, maybe another pick, you do it. I think you get rid of him, and it's just what that package ends up looking for Hanifin that I think, in my opinion, determines whether we keep him. But or at least if I was in Craig Conroy's shoes, but obviously I'm not. We'll see what he ends up deciding to do. If you guys want to move on to Markstrom, we can do that because he's been the conversation that a lot of people have been talking about. Obviously, I think, like you mentioned, Anon, it's been Tanev that a lot of people are predicting to be the next gone, but Markstrom is the big conversation. He is the big money fish that everybody's aiming for right now, and I think we could potentially see him moved at some point before the trade deadline. And it's gonna be interesting to see if it happens. That's for sure. I'm curious what both of you guys think. I mean, what that trade potentially could look like, what it could mean for this Flames team.
So for Markstrom, I don't know what the return could be, because he, like we said earlier in the show, he's had an on and off season. So last year off season, this year he's been fantastic. So I don't know what the return package could look like. Devils most likely is the team that he could land in because they are in need of goaltending. Other teams, I don't know if he'll go and join his best friend Elias Lindholm in Canucks or where he goes. But I don't know about the return package, but there have been two angles to the Markstrom trade so far. There are people who want him to stay so that he can be a skeleton and a mentor for Dustin Wolf, and that's one call. The second angle is that we trade him, get a good high pick, high draft and all that, and then keep Vladar and Dustin Wolf. Again, Vladar can be rusty at times. He hasn't started so many games, so he has been rusty. I don't know how much useful he can be for Dustin Wolf. So, and then Eric Francis was interviewing Jacob Markstrom today, and Jacob Markstrom said now it's basically up to Calgary Flames to decide whether he gets traded or not. I'm not gonna do anything. Although keeping in mind Markstrom has a 2-year non-move clause, so if he decides to waive that, he can, or if not, he can stay with Calgary. So he said it's gonna be up to the Calgary Flames, Craig Conroy, whether they want to trade him or not. And then we'll have to see. It's going to be an interesting next few weeks, or even next couple of days. We'll have to wait and see. But I want to say we trade Vladar, keep Markstrom just for that skeleton for Dustin Wolf, and then later look to trade Markstrom if he have somebody settled in. So that's my thought.
Yeah, the one thing that I would push back on that in terms of helping Dustin Wolf develop, if you trade Vladar, it's a little bit more of my point will be a little bit less salient, but if I'm looking at in terms of helping Markstrom, helping Wolf develop, you got to at least let one of those guys go then, because Markstrom could be helping Wolf right now, but he can't because they have too many goalies. Where they have Markstrom and Vladar, and he's not going to be able to, like, if we don't make any moves in goaltending, and we're saying like we got to develop Wolf more, he's not going to get any development more than he's already gotten, because he's, like, we've had this conversation on the pod before, but he's dominated in the AHL. I think he's basically done at that level, and he needs to find time to develop at the NHL level. We just don't have space for him right now because we have Vladar and Markstrom. And so, well, I think the point you made at the end is good, Anand, in terms of like trade Vladar, and then you can bring in you have space for Wolf, and then Markstrom can kind of mentor him. But I also think that, so in terms of that angle, it's okay in my eyes. But I also think you're not going to get like anything for Vladar. Like the return, if we're thinking in terms of the conversation that we had about Tanev and Hanifin, where we're like get as much you can get as much return as you can, get as much return as you can, draft picks, prospects, rebuild this team from the ground up. You're not going to get that with Vladar. If you trade Vladar, you're not good. You're like 5th round pick, 6th round pick, 7th rounder. I don't know. You're not going to get very much. With Markstrom, that's where I could see 1st round picks start to fly in there. I could start to see like decently high level prospects coming into play, and that's what would be a little bit more exciting. I do think it'll be interesting in terms of I know Markstrom's got a big deal, and you mentioned the no move clause. It's another kind of hurdle they'd have to face. I think if they make a trade, I think indications are that he probably will waive it if they want to trade him. But yeah, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking the best future for this team, not necessarily the best now, because we've been trying to stay in the best now for the last like 5, 6, 7, even longer years, and that hasn't worked. So I think, well, your point is good in terms of like we'd be taking a little bit of a risk in terms of putting Wolf out there with just Vladar, and seeing how that tandem kind of sinks or swims, and then maybe Wolf's confidence gets shot a little bit because he doesn't have that experienced, like really good veteran to fall back on. I think that's a risk you have to take just because of what you could get for Markstrom, and then the playing time that Wolf would get. I think the worst thing you can do is not trade either of them, and then Wolf doesn't play at all. I think the second best thing you could do is trade Markstrom, get a huge haul, and then Wolf plays a little bit more. And then I think if you trade Vladar, that would also be okay. But I'd prefer to ship Markstrom out of here, just in terms of a pure value for him kind of standpoint.
Yeah, and I don't think I disagree with much of that either. One thing that you brought up, Anand, that I really like the idea of is the trading him potentially to the New Jersey Devils, who currently right now are not in a very good position goaltending wise. The hockey writers, that's what they're called, just made a article, I believe it was 2 days ago, ranking all the teams. New Jersey with their goaltending, New Jersey's landed flat on 27th, which for the type of team that they are and have the potential to be, that is pretty bad. And I think a goalie like Jacob Markstrom could completely turn that around. They don't have a single goalie on the roster over 900 save percentage, which is pretty depressing, despite the talent that they have on that spot. Caleb, if you want to jump in, you can.
I just said yikes.
Oh, okay. But it's been pretty rough over there in New Jersey, and I think a player like Markstrom could really add to that. Another thing that makes it, I don't know what their cap situation as a whole looks like, but looking at it just for the goalie position, the highest paying goaltender they have currently is Vanacek, who is currently making $3.4 million. It's obviously a bit expensive for a backup, but nothing that you can't deal with. And, I think they have a lot of players that they could send us over. I would personally like to see more prospects than real talent. I've seen a lot of people say that we should try and get Meyer. We should try and get one of their more talented defensemen. I think you try and just aim for prospects. You maybe see if you can get that first-round pick. I think because of his flimsy track record and inconsistencies at time, that first round pick feels a little hard. I feel like at least a second round pick has to be assured. So I think if you can get a good prospect, maybe 2, and a second round pick, I would be very happy with trading Markstrom. But if because of his past you can't get at least a second round pick, I think you trade Vladar and you try and do exactly what you said, Anand. Have that Markstrom Wolf duo for the rest of the year. Give Markstrom the chance to try and mentor Dustin Wolf. Honestly, I just want to see him at the NHL level. So far this year, it's been kind of like he's been too good for the AHL, not good enough for the NHL, but I really, really, really think that if you give him enough time in the NHL, he'll work it out. I think I don't think it's a skill issue for him at this point. It's an experience issue, and the only way you get experience is by working at it. And I think if you are missing out if you don't bring him up. That's for sure. And I'm trying to think of what other topics we had going into it. I think we were gonna quickly touch on how the Flames are doing right now, which if we still want to do that, we can quickly go around the room quickly here. What do you guys think are your expectations now? Pretty much a month away from the last time, Anand, we had you on the podcast to talk about the Flames. What do you think has changed since then? And has your expectations for this team going into the end of the season, really? We're starting to get pretty close to it. Has anything changed for you?
Yeah, we have played 51 games so far, and yeah, about 80, so 82 games left in total. So that brings us around 30 roughish games left. I am impressed with this run, especially after the All-Star break, especially with Kuzmenko, the trade we talked about, and look to see what young guns we can bring. There is Peltier now who's bringing the energy, Kevin Rooney as well, and Cole Schwinn, Walker Duher, all those AHL rookies shining. Stillington is back. I like that. Even Pachalvi or Pahal, or how we pronounce his name, the claim from Vegas Golden Knights. He is being amazing too. So I would say I like this team. I would love them to try for a playoff run, obviously, but it's going to be challenging, a little bit difficult going into. We are one spot away from, like I said earlier, from the wildcard spot. So we'll have to wait and see. Maybe I'll give it a little bit, couple more games before I make a infinitive decision on if we can make it to the playoffs or not. As of right now, with the streak, how they're going, 3 wins back to back so far against Blackhawks before the All Star break, and now Boston Bruins and tonight New Jersey Devils.
Yeah.
Good chances. So yeah, let's keep our fingers crossed. I like the team. I like the new energy. But again, if we were to get high draft picks, I'm supportive of that too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Caleb, do
and
you
I
want to give
think
yours?
yeah, I think the big thing from me would be I'm looking I'm looking at this roster, and I'm looking at the position we're at, and I know technically we are only 1 point out of a wild card spot, but I do not. That is probably the last place I want to be, because that's where we've been. We had a very similar conversation last time you were on and on, but it's like this kind of limbo position is not a fun position to be. And while we are only 1 point back of a playoff spot, it is also important to note that a lot of the teams either in front of us or near us have games in hand. So the Kings have 3 games in hand. They've only played 48. The Blues have 2 games in hand. They've only played 49. The Kraken have a game in hand, so they can easily overtake us again. The Coyotes, well, they're 4 points back of us. They have 3 games in hand, so that gap can close pretty quick if they start winning. Similar thing with the Wild, where they're a little bit further out, but they have 1 game in hand. We've played a lot more than the rest of the league, so we'd have to still be pretty consistent in terms of winning a lot and hoping other teams don't, to have a chance to get in the playoffs. So. And with our whole conversation about what the strategy should be around the trade deadline, I'm thinking if we're selling off a lot of our pieces, the most important thing for me is getting young talent in the lineup, and I honestly don't care about what happens after that. If we make the playoffs, cool. But I'd honestly be a lot more excited if we're able to secure a little bit of a higher draft pick. We're at the point where we're too good to be picking in the like top 5 or anything around there, but anything up to like 6 and below is in range. Buffalo would currently have the number 6 pick, and they're only 5-6 points behind us. So that's kind of what I'm honestly just saying, like, start the rebuild fully. I'm not necessarily saying fully tank, but it would be nice if we had a high draft pick, but overall focus on developing the young talent. Whether we make the playoffs or not is not going to be an indicator of success this season, because we're not built for that yet. And I'm not saying that's not going to come, but I don't think we're built for it yet. And I think if we're able to get a high draft pick, and if we're able to just at least see some development from young players in the lineup, like we've seen a little bit in the season already, that's kind of would be my goal, and that would be my most positive takeaway from the season, as pessimistic as my whole speech has sounded.
Yeah. And I think there are a lot of things to like about this team. I think a lot of the things that I do like, though, are related to the young core. And I think I agree with you, Caleb, and I think this is the same way it went when we had this conversation pretty much a month ago. Was I think both me and Caleb are more pessimistic. Anand, you're still really hoping for the playoffs, which I think is a possibility. I personally, I think this year I want to miss. I want to miss and get a high draft pick because I really like this draft class. I think that if we get a really, really good pick this year, we could be looking at, maybe not next year, it could be next year, but I think in 2 years down the road, we have the potential to have a really good squad. And I think that revolves completely around whether Craig Conroy can get me Tij Aginla. Because if he doesn't get me Tij Aginla, I will be so pissed off. I swear to God, if we do not get this kid, I will be so mad. Because he is having such an incredible season with the Kelowna Rockets that I think that if we do not somehow, if he is not wearing a Calgary Flames jersey at some point to start off his professional career, I will be so mad. I will not be able to live with it. Caleb, earlier in the segment we recorded prior, you spoke on how you would feel if the 49ers won the Super Bowl. If he ends up in any jersey that doesn't have a big flaming C on it, that is my 49ers Super Bowl. Craig Conroy needs to draft this kid, and I will be so pissed if he doesn't. I really hope he does. But I think that's kind of just at this point, that should show you what my opinion of this Flame season is as of right now. When I'm looking forward to a prospect that we haven't even drafted yet, but we will draft him. Craigie boy, help me out here.
We will, Craig. We will.
Craig.
We will.
We will draft him, Craig. But I think that's all the main things I wanted to hit on. Thank you, Anand, so much for coming on again. It's always a blast having you on to chat Flames with you. Make sure to check out Anand everywhere that he is. I know you have your own show. I've been on it once. I hope I can come on it again because it is an absolute blast to both watch and be a part of. So make sure to go check out Anand on both Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. Are you anywhere else that you want to shout out?
LinkedIn and Threads and Blue Sky. I'm everywhere.
Oh, okay. Yeah, make sure to check him out everywhere because he's a big friend of the show and we always like having him on. But make sure to stick around for the next segment. We definitely have something interesting coming up next.
All right. So for this segment, this is maybe our most topical segment ever because we are recording this right after the NFL honors just wrapped up. So we're on the spot. This is breaking news, basically. When we started recording this podcast, we didn't know what the hell these were going to be, and now we know. We've got all the results here, so we're going to go through. We'll go through. I don't know how you want to do this, Simon, because we'll talk about all the major awards. Do you want to go with the exciting one first with the MVP, or do you want to kind of build up to that?
I feel like you want me to say build up to that just because you want to start off with the Rookie of the Year, I think I think we start off with MVP. I think we gotta start. We gotta start with the big dog. We gotta let the people wait for your overreaction. We can't hit them with it right off the jump. That's no fun.
That's fair. So this one, I mean, was a pretty no doubter. Lamar got 49 out of 50 first place votes, and easily went away almost with a second unanimous MVP. Now that you think about it, which is actually insane.
Which is pretty insane. Like,
I do want to.
I'll let you go. I'm finding stats to back up my opinion first, so you go.
I was just gonna pat myself on the back, because if you go back to whatever, like, our predicting the NFL awards video, who did I say was gonna win MVP?
Holy smokes! Who did he predict was gonna win the Super Bowl again?
Shut up. My Bengals Seahawks Super Bowl.
Yeah, that one ended up looking really good, huh?
I didn't know that Joe Burrow was going to get injured, and to that same extent, don't listen to that episode again and say who I thought my runner-up would be.
Oh,
But we don't care about any of that. We just care about what I got. And I mean, I was a little bit like influenced by the fact that the Ravens had just beat the Seahawks like 37-3 or whatever it was. So I just seen how good he was. But he's been like that the whole season. It's not as good as his 2019 run, obviously, and it was a very weak year for MVP candidates. But he more than deserved it, especially with the run at the end of the season. And I do think that game between the Niners and the Ravens on Christmas Day, showed a lot in terms of what that race was going to turn out like. Because that's the day that the CMC Brock Purdy kind of conversation died. Josh Allen's been very inconsistent, and Dak kind of has had a couple stinker performances in there. Lamar is the only one who kind of just doesn't have any like key mistakes or fuck ups you can point to and be like, there's a reason he can't be.
Yeah, and I don't really disagree with that either. I think he was the obvious pick. I don't know. It really does speak to how bad this group was that he was nearly unanimous. Because
yeah,
did he deserve to win it? Yes. Did he deserve to get it unanimously? Absolutely not. Like 24 touchdowns, 7 picks, while a good season. I don't know if that should mean unanimous MVP, because I think in your average NFL season there will be quite a few big key name players hitting that margin. I think this season we just didn't quite see that. And even for his rushing numbers, a little bit higher than what his average has been in the last 3-ish seasons, but even then, nothing too crazy, at least for Lamar's standards. I just think, while it is a very, very good season for him, I don't know if him nearly getting unanimous is crazy to me, because I don't think that if he did win his second unanimous MVP, and like you said, was given that honor as, I don't know, has anybody won 2 unanimous MVPs? I'm sure.
Probably.
Probably.
Not that I have that right in front of me.
Yeah,
but,
no, I guess I'm kind of putting you on the spot. But the I am curious about that, because I think he would be joining, if somebody has or if somebody hasn't, he would be joining a very prestigious group, obviously, off of a season that, while good, maybe isn't quite deserving of that. So I think it's probably a good thing he wasn't unanimous. I think...
so, this is
sure.
funny.
Unanimous.
Okay, your headphones died.
However, my head, I hate my headphones.
Yeah, your headphones died. You might want to make that point again. But yeah, I think it is pretty interesting, this entire thing. Let me know when you have your headphones on. Okay,
yeah, we're
say the stat. Say the stat you had.
The one time I look at my phone to get a stat, my headphones conk out on me. The fuckers. So not only has there not been like a player to get 2 unanimous MVPs, there's only been 2 unanimous MVP seasons, period.
Who's the other?
In the history of take a wild stab in the dark.
I'm trying to think if I should
When
know
you
this or not.
When you
Like-
think good NFL player
Good, not great.
or all-time great NFL player, I guess I should say.
So he is an all-time great. Okay.
Yeah.
For some reason, I feel like Peyton Manning would have had one.
No.
No? Okay, who is it?
Brady.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, he seemed too obvious. But yeah, I know that adds up.
Yeah. So it's Lamar is 1 vote away from doing that twice. which is absolutely insane.
out-dueling Brady. Which, I mean, once again, 24/7 season. Great job. Good season. Not quite good enough to be getting a record over Brady, I would say.
It's one of those things where it's like Lamar's 2019 season obviously deserved to be MVP, and it was the same kind of conversation where there was nobody else in the conversation, but that was because of how insanely good that season was. And I actually think he had some decent competition, because that was the year that Russ was just playing out of his mind.
That's true.
And I was a salty Seahawks fan. I can admit now that Lamar fully deserved that. but I was really pissed because I was like, Russ should have won. I
What
thought
was
he should
Russ's
have won
passing
when
touchdowns and interceptions like that year?
34-5.
Okay.
So like,
obviously he wouldn't have gotten anywhere close rushing wise, but he had like a slight edge passing, I guess. But I mean, that's not the conversation we're supposed to be having.
He also threw for 1,000 more yards. Anyway, Russ should have won MVP. But no, like my point being that that season it wasn't like it was a lack of competition. It was more so because he was just so much better than everybody else. This season it does feel like it's just a lack of a competition, which I mean, great for Lamar. I think he deserves that kind of recognition. But I mean, hopefully next year we get a little bit more of a race because it feels like there's always at least a little bit of a race, and we didn't really get that this year.
No. It felt like it was a foregone conclusion since like week 15, and that's no fun. And it's not because he had an incredible season either.
Yeah, and it's not even. Yeah, I just wish there were other candidates even.
Yeah,
and it wasn't even like him out dueling anybody. It was just everybody else dropping out, which that's the part that kind of irks me. It's not even that it was decided that early, because I mean normally it is decided relatively early before the season, but it's like at least we could have had some sort of fight where it's like there's a debate.
Or like if it is going to be like an obvious pick, at least have it be because of how good it was that it's obvious, right? Like we just didn't have like. And truly, and I mean, this is going to sound like, yeah, you can clip this and make it sound like I'm really crapping on Lamar here, but like, it feels like this season we just really didn't have a truly elite, like, type season from anyone. Like, it just felt like, sure, 20, or whatever it is, 24-7, he had 5 rushing touchdowns, 800 yards. That is a great season. But is it...
Yeah.
In the upper echelon of what an MVP probably should be? I don't know. Like, put that in the race last year. Is that winning it?
Probably not. Although, who was it last year? A-Rod? Fuck him. He doesn't deserve any awards of any kind. He's a terrible person. Get my weekly A-Rod.
I guess I set you up for that one. But
get my weekly A-Rod hate in there. Fuck you, buddy. Hope you never play a football game again. Anyways, if we wanna move on to, well, I don't know if there's that much more we can say about MVP. Just I think we covered it pretty well. If we want to move on to Offensive Player of the Year, and this one is one where I don't think I can necessarily disagree, because Christian McCaffrey won.
Yeah,
and it's not like anybody's up in arms. I do disagree with the pick, but I'm not like upset with it. But I'll hand it over to you in terms of what you think of it before
I'm kind of interested to. Is the other option in your head Tyreek Hill? Okay, that would make sense, I guess, because that is the only other person I could see being like a potential pick here. But it really felt like Christian McCaffrey just like kind of cut it off at a certain point. I think it's just when you heard around the league of a guy who is we spoke about it in our Super Bowl segment, but a guaranteed touchdown every single game. If you are a bettor, bet the house on McCaffrey. That has been the conversation all year long, not even before this season. That was the conversation. He had a very long touchdown streak. I don't know if that's still going or if he had a game without a touchdown. I'm not sure. But nonetheless, I think that really speaks to the type of player that McCaffrey is, because he just completely destroys games, and I think that really is he is exactly the type of player I would expect to win this award, and for that reason I think he deserves it. Basically no questions asked. But I mean, if you want to make the argument for Tyreek Hill, I have no issue with that, because I think he had an incredible season too.
I think he did, and I think the big thing for me is that I think a lot of these awards are very what have you done for me lately, and if you flipped around the script on Tyreek's season and had like the first 8 weeks of his season instead be the last 8 weeks of his season, he would have won this award pretty handily. I think him being injured for a decent chunk of the season basically lost him this award, because for a while there he was on track to hit 2,000 receiving yards, and I think that kind of clinches it for you. I was a little bit on the Tyreek for MVP train, but the Dolphins kind of fell apart, and Tyreek didn't play as well or was hurt, and that kind of suckered things for it. So I'm a little bit of the mind of like, CMC was fantastic, and I maybe it's my Niners hatred coming out, but I do think Tyreek maybe should have got it just because he was really like the only thing that made that Dolphins offense go. So to take away CMC, you've still got some other options. You take away Tyreek, and that entire Dolphins offense is just completely lifeless.
You say that, but I think that offense is a lot worse without CMC, like a significant amount.
I don't think. Nah, but I mean, think about it this way: they still made it to the Super Bowl 4 years ago without him, and they were still a very good team without him.
Fair.
He provides a lot for them, and I don't want to like make it seem that I'm like Tyreek got robbed. It should have been Tyreek. Like fuck CMC, because I think CMC is more than deserving. I think for me it was like it's almost like a toss up in my head, and I'd give it to Tyreek because I'm a homer. But I don't want to sound too pissy about this pick. I'll provide that other perspective. Because I do think there's definitely a case for Tyreek to have won it, and I'm not the only one because if I'm looking at the votes, he got 7 first place votes.
Okay. Yeah.
I do think it's the kind of thing where like he had a bad end to the season and he was injured, and it's a what have you done for me lately league. I think if the perception was changed a little bit, maybe things turn out differently. But no, CMC is a more than deserving candidate. I maybe would have picked Tyreek, but I also am a Seahawks fan, so I don't know how much my opinion counts.
If you were the one picking every year, I don't think a lot of 49ers would be winning anything.
No, they would never sniff anything. Gino for MVP, DK for Offensive Player of the Year.
Oh my God.
Devin Witherspoon, double award of Defensive Player of the Year and Defensive Rookie of the Year. We'll get to that fucking piece of shit. Anyways, if we want to actually move on to Defensive Player of the Year, this one was interesting because I don't know if you guys have noticed, any of you avid trick play fans out there, if there's any, there's been a little bit of a Twitter takeover where I've kind of been messing with the Twitter account a little bit and getting into arguments with everybody online. And one of the things I was kind of browsing, and there was it was really funny to look up the conversation around Defensive Player of the Year today, because half of the tweets are Steelers fans thinking Browns fans who think Myles Garrett should win Defensive Player of the Year are the stupidest fucks this side of the Mississippi. And then Steelers fans come back and say, or then Browns fans come back and say, like, if people think TJ Watt are going to win this award, like, they probably don't know how to fucking read. And it's like that kind of thing, where they're going back and forth and just decimating the other people. Like, if you think this person is this, like, go to hell. And I mean, I get it. It's the Steelers and Browns. They hate each other. But, I mean, it's one of those things where I think, considering how much vitriol the faces had for each other, where they're both backing their guy so hard, it really shows how close this race was. I think it could have been given to either guy. I think we had this exact conversation when we did the preview episode, and I think you were right. I think you were right on this one. I think you had Myles Garrett. I think I had TJ Watt. And I'm still in the same place where I'm like, I don't really care at this point. I could have been given to either of them. They both had great seasons. Myles Garrett, I don't think has won it before.
Personally,
so
I would like to take my award as the better football analyst of this Trick Play podcast. Obviously, I mean, it's not like you picked MVP. Shut up.
Ooh.
But
yeah, I was gonna say.
It's not like you picked MVP. Shut up. Who did I have as MVP? I don't remember. Do you have any
Probably
idea?
like fucking Kirk Cousins or something. I don't know.
I don't think I would have. Well, you know what? I won't put it past myself. But I don't think I had him. It might have been. I might have just gone with the easy Mahomes pick. Who knows?
I think you might have said Mahomes. Yeah.
Yeah, I might have done that. That's pretty safe. I think I would have gone the safe route. Either way, I got the Defensive Player of the Year, which Caleb will never get ever again because he is a pathetic NFL analyst and sucks at his job. Anyway. Who would pick TJ Watt? Anybody who would pick TJ Watt clearly can't read.
Sounded like the Browns fans.
Okay, well, do you want to move on to a different one, or do you want to keep...
Yeah, I mean, my only other thing would be, like, I do think that Okay, I'm gonna say one more thing. I think it was a close race, and I think either of them could have got it. They both clearly make their teams better, and were a huge part of why those defenses were so good. My one thing is, who was the idiot who gave Deron Bland a first place vote? I don't care that he had that many pick sixes. He's not that good of a corner. Watch him against DK Metcalf and watch him get burnt. Like, I don't think you can have a game like that and be even considered for first place vote. So whoever voted for Deron Bland first place, you should lose your voting privileges.
And give them to Caleb, apparently.
And give them to me because I make the right.
Defensive Player of the Year. Why do you do it anywhere else?
Okay.
I know football.
Big football guy over here.
Big football guy gave prediction to one of the two guys who are gonna win the award. Was right. Best coin flipper in the league.
Big football guy.
Oh yeah, big football guy.
Speaking of big football guys, I got into speaking of Twitter arguments, I got into a Twitter argument with another big football guy apparently about this next award, Offensive Rookie of the Year. Now this is another one that was almost unanimous, where C.J. Stroud got 48 out of 50 first place votes, and that's not too much of a shock. I do think the argument that I got in was with a bit of a salty Rams fan on Twitter, who was complaining about the fact that the QB bias in the league is so high, and that Puka Nacua should have won the award. Now, I can respect that opinion. I don't think it's right, but I can respect it. I don't know where you come in on this, Simon. Do you think Puka should have been given more of a shot, or do you think this is pretty easily like Stroud? Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, there you go. There's the trick play.
Oh, I ratioed him.
Did you ratio him? No, you didn't. Oh, you did.
Yeah, look at it. 2 to 1. 2 to 1.
2 to 1.
Eat it, buddy.
You're winning by Twitter points. Let's go. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think I get both sides of it, because I think what CJ was able to do with this Texans team is really, really incredible. I think without him on that team, they are a lot worse. He does not have a lot of talent around him. I think he has a decent team, but it's not incredible by any means. And I think with a lot of other quarterbacks, that team is not very good. So I personally think that, I mean, if you want to give it the same argument you gave Offensive Player of the Year, where if you remove Tyreek Hill and you remove CMC, who has the bigger impact, I think if you want to make a similar state, like, I mean, obviously the quarterback's going to win that argument 9 times out of 10, but I think, I don't know. I don't disagree with your take on CJ. I don't disagree with anything that he said in his argument against you. So, yeah. I mean, if we're just, like, breaking down Twitter arguments at this point on Trick Play, what have we become? But,
oh, like, yeah. That's our thing.
I guess I should pick a side of the fence. I mean, I'm not mad about it, I guess, is what I'm saying. And I'm not mad with the pick.
No, and I think, I mean, his point was that it's the QB bias. And yes. Well, to a certain extent, I get that. I also don't think you can disregard the fact that the quarterback is the most important and most difficult position on the field. And if there's any other rookie season where it's like any other quarterback who's having like a decent to better than average rookie season and then put them up against Puka Nacua, I'd probably be like, Puka should probably win, because he had the statistically at least the best rookie receiver season of all time, and that is not something to sneeze at. And I think the fact that, like, I mean, I was trying to give this guy his flowers a little bit, because I do think that Puka should have gotten more recognition, and I do think it's shitty that he can't win this award. And I'm saying that as a Seahawks fan. No. I think you should get more recognition, and I think in a normal year he would win an award like this, and I think it would be fully deserved. I think if he won it this year, I'd be like, yeah, props to you, fully deserved. But I think what CJ Stroud has done, to your point, with this Texans team, that people forget how bad this Texans team was. I hate how quickly we forgot how bad they were.
I understand Tank Dell is a pretty good young receiver, but he is not top tier, can carry a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, look at him and Nico Collins. Tank Dell was this year, so I guess you can't compare him to last year. But like, I mean, look at Nico Collins last year, and it's like he's not putting up those numbers with Davis Mills. Like, there's a huge difference.
No, I don't disagree with anything you said there. Like, it's just, I do think you look at importance and what they have been able to accomplish in their first year. I think what CJ Stroud has built will end up being bigger than what we have seen out of Puka Nacua. Although that being said, I am a big fan of him. I think that he's going to be very, very scary in this NFC North division. No, not North. Crap. Why am I blanking?
NFC West, baby.
NFC West. God, I'm such a fake fan. I can't believe I blanked on that. I know that too. That's such a stupid thing to blank on. Whatever. I'm gonna be mad at myself for the rest of time for that. Come yell at me on Twitter, or Caleb on Twitter now. Go yell at Caleb on Twitter for my mistakes.
Oh yeah, come at me. I'm getting into the brouhahas now. Come at me.
Go yell at Caleb on Twitter. Shout out.
Oh yeah. Come at me. 33 followers. We're growing. Come bite me.
We're
Anyways,
in the big time now. In the big 30s.
Speaking of. Oh yeah, look at us go. Speaking of me getting angry at things,
right,
defensive rookie of the year. I don't know if so. Will Anderson won. Fucking whatever. Okay. Cool. He's a good player. I'll maybe before I like blow my lid, I'll maybe hand it over to you. This is a close race, like closer than anything else.
Do you have the stats on it?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, I would like to hear that before I give my opinion.
Or like in terms of like the votes that were
or just all of it. What's it look like?
Will Anderson had 16 first place votes.
Okay.
Jalen Carter had 14. Kobe Turner had 14. Devin Witherspoon had 4.
Whoa. Even like, I mean, I followed the team enough to know that he should probably get a bit more than 4. I mean, like,
yeah.
Whether he should have won, I mean, at this, when you're looking at it like that, it almost feels like you're just picking at it. Like, it's just, that's not even the argument to me, is should he have had more votes? And the answer is probably yes with the season he had. He was the number 1 corner for this team. And that's not to say our quarterback group is bad either. It's just like, I don't know. I don't agree with that. He probably should have gotten more votes. That's probably where I will leave it before tossing it over to you to have your fun.
Okay. So, oh boy. I think that the Seahawks normally get dipped on a lot of things because we're up in the Pacific Northwest and nobody pays attention to us because we're so isolated from everything else. I don't understand this at all, because if I'm looking at it from the perspective of who has had the best season overall, not just had the best flashes, not just had the best moments, who has had the best season overall, it is Devin Witherspoon again and again and again. That is not fair. I'm not crying over here. The first image was more accurate, but I'm okay. When I'm looking at who has had actually the most impact on their team, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, Will Anderson. Okay, he had a very slow start to the season. He came on at the end of the season and maybe was the best defensive rookie for like a little while at the end. Okay, cool, buddy. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, Jalen Carter. It's a similar thing where it's like flashes of talent, where he had a pretty good start to the season, and then after that, it's like the production completely drops off. Kobe fucking Turner, give me a break with that shit. I don't know what everybody is getting on in terms of like, Kobe Turner. Like, I feel like I didn't hear about Kobe Turner at all until the season ended. And it's just like the people in LA like circle jerking each other off. So they're like, oh wow, maybe we actually have a good player on our defense that's not Aaron Donald. No, you wonder why he got that many sacks? Because I wonder who Kobe Turner is fucking playing next to. He's playing next to Aaron Donald. I could play on a defensive line next to Aaron Donald, and I'd probably get at least a couple sacks. So put like a decent athlete on that line. Of course, he's going to get like 9 fucking sacks. I don't care about that shit. Devin Witherspoon was the heart and soul of this Seahawks defense, the absolute heart and soul. Because every single week I would make a comment on like, Devin Witherspoon is the only person who showed up to play. He's the only person who has any energy. He was the single best player we had in coverage, locked up some of the best receivers, was an absolute like force out there in terms of some of the hits he laid on people, and he also was a force on the pass rush. I know sacks are not the be all and end all, but Will Anderson on the season, 7 sacks. Witherspoon almost got half of that, and he's a fucking cornerback. He got 3. Like, I mean, if you're gonna have any sort of an argument, like if Witherspoon didn't, I knew coming into this that Witherspoon probably wasn't going to win. But for him to be that disrespected to that level, I cannot wait for Mike McDonald to coach him up and get him to the level where he is a unanimous All-Pro and eventual Defensive Player of the Year. You can take your little Defensive Rookie of the Year. We don't give a shit about Defensive Rookie of the Year over here in Seattle. Give us the fucking Defensive Player of the Year award, Witherspoon, in the next 2 or 3 years. I'm saying it. Witherspoon is going to get some hardware because he absolutely deserves it, and he was the best player on the Seahawks team, period. Better than anybody else on this team. Better than anybody else in this defense or offense. For him to have that kind of an impact in his rookie year and not get recognized for it, 4-place votes, everybody except those 4 people, you can go burn and die in hell, frankly. And you should all be revoked your privileges for ever voting for anything football ever again. I hate all of you. Fucking, this system is broken. I hate this league.
I mean, I don't know what else I have to really add to that.
I have something else to add in terms of, in the middle of my angry rant, someone came into the room, so that was fun.
Wait,
Someone
really?
just walked into the room. Yeah, and I don't know where they went.
Did they go up there?
But
did they like walk up behind
Yeah.
you? Is that really?
yeah, so like,
I'm gonna have to
came
go
into
back
the
and find
room,
that.
And then they were. I think they just walked up the stairs here. So I don't know. I don't know at what point. I don't know how much I was swearing or going on and on. I think my like LA people circle jerking each other was probably at some point when that person was in the room. So I don't know if they heard that or not. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I hope he was in the room to witness that, because
Yeah.
God, it truly was a thing to witness. I mean,
Oh boy.
oh boy, Witherspoon not winning it, and not surprising anyone.
That's so bullshit. It's just like, I don't think the people who vote for these things actually watch. I think if they actually watched the games and actually like
If they
knew
were
football, they would vote for. Yeah, like
I actually
Of course
am
you're
the
gonna-
person voting on these things. I have a vote.
I'm quitting the podcast if you vote against Witherspoon. Fuck you.
Yeah, you know, I actually voted for this guy named like Kobe Turner. Like, he seemed like he had a pretty
Ah,
good season.
I'm out.
All right. Okay. What else did we have to talk about? Comeback Player of the Year.
End the segment. Cut it off. I'm done. Fucking Rams bullshit. I'm going back to bully that guy on Twitter. Anyways, comeback player of the year. Okay, comeback player of the year. We can get into it.
Sure.
It was Joe Flacco, who I know like you were excited to see win that award. Why
Yeah.
was Joe Flacco your pick to come back?
I mean, just like looking at it at face value. I mean, I think what he has done with this Browns team is very impressive. He won the hearts of a lot of people, even like people I know who aren't necessarily football fans. Were looking at this Browns team at a certain point in the year and we're going, that yes, they better win it. And I mean, I think that's kind of where I ended up landing on it too. His like impact on this team was so cool to watch, what he was able to accomplish. So I'm personally a really big fan. I think that I mean, he took over for a player who isn't very liked and I do not like at all, and made this Browns team likable. And for that reason, I really like this pick. I understand the people who want Damar Hamlin to win it. I can respect that pick in merits because of the story. If he had won it, I would have gone, all right. I think there were a lot of better picks this year, but I wouldn't have been mad just because of it's the it's the pick that was there that everyone thought was going to be made, right? It was kind of the obvious one. I think I'm actually kind of shocked they didn't do it. I kind of respect the NFL for going for the player who was probably more deserving, although not exactly the pick that. There was people who were saying that comeback player of the year was decided at the start of the year, and I think there's definitely merit to that opinion, to a degree. So I'm happy to see Joe Flacco winning here. You mentioned, Caleb, that Baker was your pick. I would have been pretty happy with that as well.
I think I'd pick Baker over Flacco just for a couple reasons. I think nobody could have been mad if DeMar Hamlin got it, and it's almost like it almost is like a little bit of a. I do almost feel bad for him because comeback player of the year is kind of a stupid award anyways. But in terms of pure definition of it, died on the field and came back to play. I don't think you can really beat that.
I guess that's a fair point.
I think Joe Flacco even commented on it, where he was like, "What did I like?" He died on the field and came back. Like, what did I come back from? Being old and slow. But like, I don't know if that's his exact comment, but he said something along those lines.
I did read that at some
gave
point.
out again, so I'm just gonna ramble. I don't know if you can hear me. But I hate. Anyways, so with that side of it, that's where I can almost feel bad for him because I do think DeMar Hamlin was kind of a victim of just like the storyline getting old with people, and that kind of sucks because it's his life and it's more than a storyline. And for him to potentially have gotten rewarded with like this award just for like all he had to go through.
That's fair. I just don't think I didn't think he just looking at it, take the story away, look at the season. I thought he just, from what I heard, it sounded like he just didn't play much. Which was kind of.
He was a special teamer, but that's not really the thing. It's like how much did you have to work to come back to get to where you are? And it's like, I like even just being on the field, it was the benchmark for him because it was so long ago. People don't realize that there was there was like he probably if the medical team of the Bills didn't act fast enough, he wouldn't have survived. And there was a long period of time where we didn't know whether he was going to be able to play again. Yeah. So that's my case for DeMar Hamlin because I do think he's been getting like he's been being disrespected a lot in terms of like what the fuck did he do, and it's like that talk is just like a little bit like I get it from a football perspective, but I do think it is kind of broader than that, and I very very much respect it if it's like I don't think he should have won, and that's okay because my pick was Baker, so I'm obviously not even saying that he was my number one choice, but I think in some people is like dragging on him at this point, and I'm like what's going on with that?
No, I don't I don't agree with that either. I don't think that you should be ragging on a player who obviously he couldn't control the fact that he was put in this position. Even if you're mad about all the fanfare and the media of the entire thing, like he couldn't. There's no point blaming him for it. He had no control. It was a freak accident. I guess I'm just maybe it's the fact that it was just like. Maybe it was too obvious. It would have almost trivialized it to a degree, I guess, because of the fact that everybody saw it coming, right? Like it's just So I guess I'm with that part. I'm kind of what I mean, right? Because you could have just given it to him after week 1, or at that point, right? If you wanted, like I know I don't like what I'm saying, so I'm gonna stop saying it. But it's just like it's. I don't know. It kind of trivializes the award, even if it is kind of a trivial award anyway.
That was going to be my point, was that it is kind of a trivial award anyways. And I think it's like, just because it's like, wow, you could have given it to him week 1 doesn't mean necessarily that he didn't deserve it.
Sure. Fair.
And I think the other thing to say is that there are also like Flacco and Baker are probably some of the most interesting comeback stories we've seen in a long time. And that also didn't help his case in terms of like getting someone. I could give my case for Baker now. I think Baker. I do think people just have goldfish memories in terms of some of the shit they were saying. because people were ragging on Baker. I mean, one of the first videos we had ever taking off was like, "Oh, will Baker Mayfield start over Kyle Trask?"
Yeah.
And I mean, look at it in the picture. Like, he's in the Pro Bowl and he had a fantastic season. It is very much. I'm very glad. I think that episode or that segment that we did was pretty insightful. No matter how bad the quality of everything else might have been, was pretty insightful in terms of, like, I think we both brought up comparisons to Geno.
Yes, we
and
did.
I don't think either of us had the information that, like, Dave Canales, who was the one who revived Geno's career in Seattle, was now the OC. I don't know if that had happened yet, or don't know if we were privy to that information there, but, like, it is what Canales basically did twice, where Baker's career revived in much the same way Geno's did. And I think if I'm looking at it from a comeback player of the year perspective, I'm not mad that Flacco won. I am like Flacco's story is incredible. I think that it just kind of depends on where you're at. Flacco came out of nowhere, but Baker, I'm such a secret Baker fan at heart, to where so much undeserved hate. And I don't think he ever really got a fair shot at the end in Cleveland, where he just kind of played hurt for 1 year and was bad, and then was ushered out of the building and was all of a sudden a bust. Like, is that what we're saying for this guy? Like, I just feel like public opinion on him switched so much, so it's just so rewarding for me to be like, to see him have the season he had after he was so cast aside, and people just immediately wrote him off.
Yeah.
It's not like a Geno thing or even a Flacco thing, where it's like there was a long time where the opinion was like, oh yeah, he's not good anymore. It just like happened so fast, and I'm like, are we watching the same like sport? Like, it wasn't that long ago where he was leading the Browns into the playoffs and was like the savior of Cleveland. So for him to kind of get back to a similar spot, like, it makes me really happy. And maybe it's just like a little bit of a personal thing where I prefer him over Flacco, but I don't know. I just find that whole story really fascinating, and I think people underestimate how much he came back from in terms of like where he was at from a year before now, and how down on him most people were.
I can
understatement.
fully say that I thought he was on his way out of the NFL. Like, I will fully admit that. Like, I remember being a big reason that we were having that conversation of, ooh, maybe Kyle Trask could take that spot. You never know. It feels stupid now, right? But that kind of showed what the public opinion was of Baker Mayfield. And since you brought it up, here is the level of quality we had.
Oh,
this
boy.
was 7 months ago when we first started the podcast. Simon with his U-Haul boxes in the background. I was living in a different place at the time. And you can tell what an incredible setup.
I mean, look at how much better my setup's got.
That's
and I've
true.
got a whole theater rented out to myself. I've really
really come
if anyone's listening on audio, picture like Buckingham Palace behind me. That's what it's looking like.
You didn't rent this, by the way. This is from the class you teach on podcasting, because we're just so successful.
Yeah,
there you go.
exactly. They made me take over. They said, I heard the Trick Play podcast. We're putting you up there.
No, not only that, you walked in the room and they all just fell to their knees and just went, "Are you the Caleb Peterson
from the Trick Play podcast?"
And just went, "I bet
he anger biked up a hill. That guy."
You know what? I hope someday, if this podcast ends up anywhere, I hope you end up famous from anger biking up a hill. That still might be my favorite quote that has come out of this podcast.
Oh yeah, that was a good one. That or whenever I eventually go in the ocean.
That's true.
By the way, before we wrap up this segment, ocean update. You may say I skimped out on it, but my buddy Ryan did call me up and say we can do the ocean thing right now. I've got my camera. Like, if you're down, we can go right now, like yesterday, and. I unfortunately couldn't, because I had an interview in like an hour after that, so I didn't think it would be like the best thing to show up soaking wet. But there's momentum. Stay tuned. This is like the best, like, keeping you strung along. I know there's one viewer who's been in it just for this.
What about
watching
me?
Every single episode.
I want to see this shit at this point.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. Use your patience. Patience.
Hell no. At this point, this is gonna be. We might as well. Let's pay for it to be a Super Bowl commercial.
Let's do it. Fuck it.
Okay, we should probably wrap up. Considering we're running out of time here. Not next segment. Next outro.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to the podcast today and for listening to me bitch about the Niners and the Rams for like an hour, which was very fun for me. I don't know if it was fun for everybody else, but it was fun for me. If you thought it was fun, you can come over to Twitter to watch me get into more arguments, which is very. Also find us like everywhere that we are, which is YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. Or there's the Twitter right there. Boom. And then Big One Network. If you are on YouTube and are like looking for a place where you can listen to us without having to see our ugly mugs, find us on Fresh Take Network. It's on Apple Podcast, Spotify, all that good stuff. It's in that corner. Nope.
I switched it up on you.
Nope.
I had to keep things interesting.
God damn it. I'd gotten so good at it.
It's okay. I'm gonna make it easier in like a second. Whoa, 1 second.
Okay.
Whoa, give me a second. Wow, look at all the magic things on the screen to distract you from the fact that I wasn't prepared. Boom!
Hey,
It's there.
it's this corner.
There you go. You did
Boom. Got it.
Got
First
it.
try.
That is where you can
yeah,
find
you
the
can find-
podcast. It's always there
we're
as
in-
well as everything else that the awesome stuff that Fresh Take puts out every single week. As there are a lot of other shows on there that are very, very good, and you should check them out. But first, check us out because we're pretty cool.
Yeah, we're cool. We're cool. You can't quite get the same level of Seahawks rage on
That's true.
the other podcast.
A lot
so,
less Seahawks rage on this, but still a lot of very, very good stuff. That's for sure.
the McRib back. There's multiple podcasts about the McRib returning. I know you got an opinion on that one.
I do. The McRib is so good.
Maybe. I can't believe that. I've got to try it still, but I'm so doubtful.
So good.
I gotta try it. If I want to get into my shout out.
Yeah. Go ahead,
so-
sir.
I mean, I kind of had two shoutouts. My first one was this fantastic room that I'm in. I love my little jank UBC setup, and I was just somehow able to find an entire lecture hall all to myself. So that's really fun. But that's not going to be my main one because I wanted to shout this out for an actual really long time. Because I just think it's very funny and very amazing. So there's this chicken place at UBC, and I think it's the best food place on campus. It's called Download Chicken, and I go there about once a month because it's very expensive. But they serve, it's basically just like chicken fingers and chicken sandwiches, like you're kind of like KFC, Popeyes, that kind of joint. But it's more of like a local Vancouver thing, so it's, better than all of those places.
Oh, okay,
And their
Mr.
chicken is,
Bougie.
yeah, a little bit, but it's very good, and I always get like the big chicken finger combo, and that makes me like stuff my guts, and it just because it's so good. But I think the best thing about this place is that for some reason, and I don't understand why, I love it, but I don't understand why, is that whenever you get the box full of chicken fingers, at the bottom of the box full of chicken fingers, they just randomly give you a slice of white bread.
You've brought this up before.
Oh, maybe I have.
I think you've totally done this before. This has been.
Have I shouted this
Fuck,
out on the
we
podcast
peaked.
before?
We did it too much. It's over.
It's okay. I can shout out the random piece of white bread multiple times. It's fine.
I was even thinking in my head as you were bringing it out. I was like, why do I already know this?
Maybe I must have shouted it on the podcast before, but either way, it's still fantastic because nobody would ever want to eat this because it's a piece of random white bread. Nobody's eating bread by itself anyways, but the fact that it's like stained with chicken grease and just like all this garbage so that it's a soggy grease-filled piece of white bread, it's just a meat that's going to get thrown out. I guess it's just for presentation in a cardboard box, but
That's so awesome.
I don't know. I think it's fantastic.
I agree.
I'd take a bite for the content, but I stuff
I
myself
mean, it's
so full
memorable.
that if I have
It's
a bite
memorable.
of anything, I'm gonna.
Isn't that more important?
Yeah,
Like, think about it like this.
Exactly. You gotta make an impression.
You will remember for the rest of your life. You will be a 75-year-old or 80-year-old senile old man thinking, you know, Sonny, I used to get my chicken fingers with a piece of bread. And your grandkids will go like, shut up, Grandpa, I'm trying to play Halo 14. Like, it'll be just terrific. That fact, you can forever have that.
I can't wait to be a senile old man. Then I can rant even more.
True. shouting at the wind about how Witherspoon should have won the MVP in 2024.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, can I get into my shout out?
Absolutely.
All right. So
I figured.
It is so good. If you haven't had the McRib, what are you doing? It's so good. Me and my girlfriend went after hockey because, like normal people, we go and eat junk food after working out. We went and got McDonald's, and we got a McRib. Again, I stole the entire thing. I will not even try and pretend that I shared. I'm a good boyfriend. But it was so good. That shit is so good. Get yourself a McRib right now. Do not share with anyone. Do not let anyone else touch your McRib, because it is the best thing on the face of this planet.
It's that good. Like
it's that good.
I've just been so...
Neela backed me up too. She thought it was good too.
Really?
She was pissed at me that I ate the whole thing.
Wow. Okay. I trust Neela's opinion a lot more than yours.
That's fair. That's fair.
But yeah, no, okay. Like I'm willing to give it a shot. I haven't tried it, so like
I've had it twice now. I've had it twice, and it's not like I just got lucky either. They were both so good. Like even like the bread is like immaculate.
Really? Okay.
Everything about that sandwich is just terrific.
There is a McDonald's on campus, so I guess I'm gonna have to like stop over and try it. You might have to.
God, I would never in my life did I think I would want onions and pickles on a rib sandwich, but holy smokes, does it work?
They got the bones in there too?
No bones.
Okay.
No bones. If it had bones, that'd be pretty funny though.
That would be funny. I was like, you gotta go authentic on that one.
The rib is good. Like, it tastes like ribs. Unlike how McDonald's patties usually don't taste like patties.
That's kind of the biggest like thing that I'd be concerned about, because normally their meat doesn't taste like meat. So I feel like if they're trying a new type of meat, that's not going to go well for them.
Their ribs are good. It tastes really good. I will be buying them until they are gone. Whenever I go to McDonald's, take my money.
Damn. You see, I don't know if any of you guys out there listen to 32 Thoughts, the podcast, the NHL one with Elliot Friedman. Their slogan is "Try the ribs" at Montana's. Our slogan is "Try the McRib" at McDonald's.
Really shows. Really, I feel like that really hits on like. They're like the highbrow of NHL content. We're like showing exactly where we are. Yeah. You think that those Montana's ribs are good? Shove it on a sandwich.
Try the McRib.
Eat it. This guy ate 8 of them apparently, so eat it right now.
Suck my McRib, Elliot Friedman. You too, Jeff Merrick.
Oh, is their podcast good? It probably is. Yeah.
It is good. I like it. It's a lot more like Elliot is a lot more like, free and like spouting off opinions a lot more than he does on like Hockey Night in Canada, which I find fun.
I imagine. He's usually not very biased. So I was thinking in my head that I don't know how interesting it would actually be.
He's not biased, but he's like he and Merrick have good chemistry. Okay. Where they're like constantly digging. They're constantly like digging at each other, and it's pretty funny. They're both funnier. They're both funnier than I thought they would be, honestly. Like,
yeah, that's kind of what I was gonna say. Like, Elliot Friedman is like one of the smartest hockey minds out there, and I will absolutely give him his flowers when it comes to that. But like, I would not think of him as like a guy who could entertain me for 60 minutes. Like,
Oh yeah, he absolutely does. Honestly, like I'm to the point because normally they have it where it's like they have like a news segment at the start of their podcast, and then they get into like a Q&A, and then they'll have like an interview with a player. And I'm at the point where I like skip out on the interview of the player because that's the least interesting part because I just like the.
I
Like,
mean, with hockey
banter
players,
they have.
yeah.
Yeah, because it's like Nathan McKinnon, like, yeah, like, or like they're asking like.
Yeah,
decent
it's
questions
super
and
fun
McKinnon's
going back
giving
to
them
Nova
nothing.
Scotia where, like, I hang out with my family and my kids, and it's so
Yeah.
cool. Like, I love spending time with my parents, and, sometimes, like, when I was a kid, I would, like, go to this hill, and then we'd roll down the hill. It was so cool. That's, like, my best
You
memory
just
of
gave
when I was
him-
14.
You just gave a significantly better answer than Nathan McKinnon did that entire podcast.
If I will say, if I was ever brought on a podcast for my athletic ability, I almost think I'd do that on purpose. Like, just, like, tell stories, like,
Ironically,
like, Simon,
yeah.
tell us something about your childhood. When I was like 9 years old, me and a couple of buddies, we did this crazy thing. I don't know if a lot of people did this. We took our bikes to the top of this really tall hill, and get this. We rode down it so fast. Don't get me wrong. We were still holding the brakes. We're not crazy. But like, we rode down that hill.
That is still a significantly more exciting answer. You have a lot more like inflection in your voice.
That's
you
fair.
gotta-
Yeah.
If you really want to get the peak like hockey player type interview,
I'm
you have
trying
cut all that emotion
trying
out
to
of
make
the work.
biking down a hill entertaining.
So
That's
you
the
just gotta
difference.
like when we were 9 years old, we were like went to the top of the hill and we brought our bikes up there.
Oh yeah,
and,
that's right. I have to
like
pretend to be
first
cool. One second.
started riding down our hill and
1 second. Is this appropriate? So, like, when I was 9, I used to hang out with people, and we used to do stuff, and it was super cool. Me and my parents were always close, and sometimes I used to shoot pucks at, like, my oven or something. I don't know. What would be interesting to put here? We'll say an oven. I used to shoot pucks at an oven while my mom cooked a full roast chicken. It really helped improve my hockey abilities, Anyway.
there
pucks and
you
drink.
go. You nailed it. There you go.
Yeah, all it took was trying to pretend to be cool. I just like thought of all like the cool hockey kids in high school. That's what I tried to hit right there. They're my inspiration.
Yeah.
All of you.
My only tip would be to say like a lot
you
more,
know.
but
But
that's something you can coach up.
But
you know
you know. Yeah, that's true. I don't say a lot anymore. So I guess that helps me out a bit from not getting the full hockey player interview. I actually somewhere
Yeah.
on the internet, maybe I should try and find it. There is a Simon hockey interview. Fun fact.
really like
That
a
I
post-game
was
interview.
interviewed by
We're putting that on the
Breakfast
pod
Television.
next week.
Oh, I don't know if I can find it.
Mm.
I was interviewed on the bench mid-game for like Breakfast Television while doing like their Breakfast Television tournament or whatever when I was like 10.
Yeah,
And I gave like the most 10-year-old hockey player answer ever where I was like, they were like, what do you think's the most important thing to win? Teamwork or something like that. I'm sure I should try and find that because that would be pretty funny to. I don't think I could. I don't know. I don't even know what I'd look for. But like,
that's how we intro in the podcast next week. Teamwork.
teamwork. No, but I gave it like a hockey answer, like like I actually gave that kind of answer. It was like, I think teamwork's super important. Getting pucks
10-year-old
in deep.
Simon was preaching pucks in deep. Yeah.
Yeah. Probably. I was still that like hockey. The hockey mind was there.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, check out next week's podcast where hopefully it'll be better. That's what I might start doing. I'll just promise improvement every week.
Oh yeah.
I feel like that is the most depressing thing that you could do in every episode.
Well,
That's what we're
this
gonna
week
start
sucked.
doing.
We'll
God,
be
this
better
one
next
fucking
week.
sucked. Go watch next week.
We'll try
We'll have it
again.
figured out by then. Just go. Screw off.
Yeah, it's fucking fine. Yeah.
Oh God, we had a lot of swear words this week. I think
Yeah,
for both of
that
us.
might be my fault. Yeah, that might be my fault. Like
Whatever.
mostly.
The only person I think we're pissing off is my dad. He's walked up to me multiple times and just gone like, "God, you guys swear a lot on the podcast." I was
Like multiple times now.
like, "Yes, actually, multiple times he's walked up to me. I was like, Dad, you are just watching the Caleb Seahawks segments. You need to stop." This is.
Yeah, it's you guys exclusively me.
I have no idea.
I think it might be.
I drop the occasional swear. I think I'm more conservative with it, which is knowing both of our personalities outside of in front of a microphone. I think that's pretty surprising, but like
Yeah. Well, I think I'm pretty restrained when I'm not talking about like the Seahawks or just something I'm
That's
pissed about in general.
fair. Yeah, like I think yeah. Well, I mean, I'm less restrained on the podcast than I normally am. Like talking.
Yeah.
Like it's two different modes for me at this point. Comparing this to doing any sort of like commentating work or anything like that is completely different.
Yeah.
Like it's two parts of my brain at this
Yeah.
point. But like yeah. Next week it's better probably. Maybe.
Probably.
We'll talk about things. It'll be great.
Oh,
Maybe we'll talk
yeah.
about-
Oh yeah.
Guess what? Guess what's coming back next week? Kyle Trask. We're gonna see who, whether or not Kyle Trask. Just watch for next. You know what? I won't spoil it. Just watch for Kyle Trask next week. Since we discovered that.
Kyle Trask segment coming.
Kyle Trask segment.
Kyle Trask segment.
Can we make a full segment out of Kyle Trask? Whatever. We've talked for too long.
Oh yes, we absolutely could.
We should
I'm doing my
try.
Kyle Trask film study.
Tune in for Kyle Trask.